Hello, this is CodeJoy's Coding Introduction for Smarties. My name is Max, and I'm going to be teaching the beginner how to code. Now, the first thing to understand about code is there's different types of code, and I think the best way to think about this is for web development. Web development uses HTML, CSS, and JS. That stands for Hypertext Markup Language, Cascading Style Sheets, and JavaScript. HTML is the text and the order of the website. So for example, an HTML document would look like this. I don't. Okay, so this would be the HTML. And I could save this into a text file as .html instead of .text, and I could open it up on the internet. And as a matter of fact, why don't I do that? So you can ignore the fast stuff I'm doing right now because it's not the point. Okay, so let's take this, put it here, and then I'm gonna save it, but I want to save it as HTML. Are you sure you want to change it from text to HTML? Yes. And now if I double click this, it opens up. Let me just show you. It opens up on the internet, on your internet browser. And this is something you can do. You don't have to download anything. It's just built in. And it says hello world. It hides all the other stuff I typed. The HTML, this would be called an HTML tag. When you have the carets like that, it's a tag. And it lets the computer know, hey, this is where the HTML document starts and this is where it ends. And that's how all HTMLs, even above that, above the HTML is they'll do like doc type HTML. I don't remember the syntax for it. It's not important, but that's what lets the computer know, hey, this is an HTML document. Then here it says, this is where it starts, this is where it ends. The body is just, this is the body of the HTML document. Sometimes you might have stuff above it, like where you would put what shows up. Like here it says Smarties. Google has programmed it so that the title is whatever your title is. And that would go up here. But for now, just basics, body, and then at the end of the body, some of these tags are special, so you might not need to do the curly brace, but normally, for a paragraph, for example, you would say, hi, I'm a paragraph. And then you would do a slash and then the P. So it's having a P on both sides with the carets. However, the opening tag wouldn't have a slash, and then the closing tag would have a slash before it, before the letter. And there's a lot of different letters, like P is paragraph, H1 would be like heading, and the body and the HTML, they might not need a closing tag. It's more important for paragraphs because you're going to have a bunch of paragraphs, whereas you're only going to have one body and one HTML. So that is what HTML is. If you see code that looks sort of like this, it's HTML. And HTML you can edit just real quick, I'll show you this. If you right click and click inspect on any website, ignore all this, it's super confusing, but basically if I go to the top where it says, does it say body anywhere? See, boom, this is the body. I can close it or open it. You notice how it has the HTML, the head I was talking about above the body, and then the body. Now in the body, if you click on these three dots here and click edit as HTML, I can, above all this code that, you know, neither of us truly understand. I mean, I don't really, to be honest. So I can put H1. Remember I said H is a tag. We'll start with P. Although it's easier to see with H1, so we'll just do H1. I would do H1 opening tag, hello, and I did a dot, but we'll just leave it there. It's not necessary. And then I'll say closing tag H1, and voila. And now when I click out of this, see that dot hello at the top. So I've modified this. Now, obviously I didn't hack MBC in 5 seconds. That is local on my local internet. If I refresh the page, it goes away. Anyway, that I hope fully explains what HTML is. That's not how to code HTML. It's just explaining that there's different types of code. That's what HTML is. CSS is the color. So this is just black. Our little text document doesn't have CSS. But if you go to my website, for example, and you click on my music app, this is gold, and then so there's some CSS and JavaScript going on here, working together with HTML. So CSS is how I would say color blue and change this. And let's edit this. We'll edit it directly in the browser. So once you have your test.html, you can inspect it, and you have the body by clicking inspect, and then I have hello world. Now let's say I had a P that says paragraph. I'm going to make this a little bigger so you can see. Hello world paragraph. Now let's say I wanted to make that paragraph blue to show you what CSS is. The best way is to have a separate file that is a CSS file and links to it. That's the most respectable way to do it. And that's how I always do it. However, just for the purpose of this demo, I think I'm going to try to get away with doing it in the HTML. Okay, that didn't work. Try that. Okay, disaster. So I forgot how to do inline CSS. So we're gonna create a little thing. We're gonna say, instead of touch I'm going to say make a folder, make a directory called sample. And now it created a folder called sample. Now I can go inside of sample, and I'll show you CSS inline in a second, but I just want to get it right doing it the other way first. Go to sample. So I'm going to create an HTML file, and I'm going to create a CSS file, and that's just by .html or .css. And I could even create sample.js. They don't all have to be called the same thing, but just to make it easier. Now I've programmed my computer where I can just say code, and it will open everything up in that folder in my code editor. And I like to make my code editor full screen. If you have this YouTube tutorial full screen, then you can, which I recommend, then you can do 4 fingers on your trackpad to the left or right, and you can swap between watching my video, then pause it and try to do some of this yourself. Now, sample HTML, this is VS Code. Instead of awkwardly editing text and then saving it as HTML, or editing it directly from the browser, those are for teaching purposes only. I would never do that. It's much easier to use this. This is free to download. It's called Visual Studio Code. Anyway, if I type in HTML, it knows how to get it going. And it would give me something like this. However, just for this, I will do it from scratch. And you don't need all that anyways. I can just say HTML. I guess it does have a slash. Okay. And then body. I don't think you need the slash, but whatever. Then I could say H1 hello, and notice how it automatically gives it to me, and it's the closing tag, and it's color coded, so the tags are in blue and the text is in white. Now if I say P, enter, it'll give me the paragraph tag and the closing tag, and I can say I'm a paragraph. I'll just say para. Now if I save this, there's also something called live server, which will open it up on the internet. Hello, I'm a paragraph. Okay, so just to show you, if I say 2 here and I save and I go back, it's live. It knows every time I save, it'll update. I don't have to refresh this. Okay, so now let's say the way to link this HTML document to the CSS document is to say link rel equals style sheet, href equals sample.css. And it did that for me automatically. Again, you don't need to link to a CSS file. I should just be able to do it inside of it, and I will in a second. The pressure of making this live, I just forgot, because it's something you never do. It's considered really bad practice. I just wanted to do it to show you that it works. You don't need to go through all this complications. Okay, so let's say now that I'm linked to this file, here, inside of the opening P tag, or any tag for that matter, but inside of the opening P tag, I can say class equals red. And then I'll save. And nothing changed, nothing broke. And this can go here. The space doesn't do anything there. what class equals red is this is marking the HTML with something that the CSS can then modify and change the color of. So, and I don't even need to do class red. I could just say h1 color green. And if I save, go back, my h1 is green. To illustrate the use of classes, here I'll say paragraph normal. And here I'll say class is red, paragraph classed as red. And if I save, it should be a green heading because my H1s are hello. This H1 here is talking about the H1 tag, but if I do another H1 saying goodbye at the bottom, what color do you think it will be? Well, it will be green because it's an H1 and that's what H1s the colors are. Now, if for the class of red, I would have to say dot red color red. And now you can see that the paragraphs with the class of red have been changed to red. And if I changed it, I can keep the name as dot red, but I can have this be blue. Ignore that. This is blue now, and now it's blue. The red classes give you blue text because the paragraphs with the class of red are designed by CSS to be colored blue. And I could say background color peach puff. And it would be like that. And another interesting thing to notice is how it goes all the way over here. But if I said display inline block, it wouldn't. So default, it's a block element, which means it takes up the entire width. Anyway, that's a little too, that doesn't matter for beginners. Okay, so another thing is I could say ID equals pink. Now, IDs, classes, as you can see, are useful to applying to different paragraphs. Like whenever I want a paragraph to be red, I can give it the class of red. IDs, you can't have multiple things with the same ID. ID is like, where exactly am I? Not what type of thing I am. So ID, I could say, it would be a hashtag. And I would say hashtag pink, color pink. And now it's pink. Now, and again, if there's just a paragraph without a class, I'd say, haha, it's just black. And if I gave it a class of Pikachu, it's just black. It has a class of Pikachu, but it doesn't have any style in the CSS sheet, so it doesn't crash the code. CSS won't crash your code. It'll just change the color or it won't. JavaScript is what'll crash your code, and I'll show you that next. But okay, so you can see how I'm starting to, and I could also say HTML background color purple, and now the whole thing's purple. So pretty cool, right? And I could even have this, but these are kind of advanced things, but I'm just showing you an idea. Now I made the green a little transparent, so you can't even really tell it's green anymore. Okay. So that would be CSS. Like, look how simple this is HTML and CSS. And now if we wanted to give it a little life, a little JavaScript, I would say, and I'm sorry, this is doing a lot of the work for me. I get that, but who cares? We're focusing on understanding the differences between the languages, and I think I've done a decent job at showing the difference between HTML, which is where you tell the CSS where to change the color of something. Okay, now script, I would say SRC, that stands for like source, is sample.js. And then I can just save. And I haven't forgotten to show you the inline style. I'm about to do that. But if I open the JS file, now we're linked to the JS file. So if I say alert hello and I save, this is alerting hello. So you can see that it's part of this document. Every time I refresh this page, it will tell me hello. And when I hit OK, then it'll go back. So this is clearly linked to this. If I said hello to and saved, it'll say hello to. Okay? And this is not live on the internet. This is just on my local computer. But okay, so let's stay focused. So HTML, if I wanted to do style without doing a class that talks to a different file, if I just wanted to say style equals color blue, I'm not sure what I did wrong before. I tried doing curly braces. Sometimes you have to. Just color blue. Oh, I think I put the colon outside of the quotes. I forget what I did wrong, but this is how you would do it inside. The this I could delete my style sheet and save. All the style would go away except for the inline style that's part of this thing. And then same thing with the script. If I save this, there's no alert anymore. There's no style except for the inline style. And I would have to put the script at the bottom, in part of the body, but at the bottom of all this, and I'll say script. And the script tag means anything I write in here will be code. So if I say alert, hey, and save, it will say hey. So now you see that this is a simple HTML document. It's got a script that is doing something. You know, I'll explain alert later. That's a function. And this is the message. And also that's a string. I'll get into that. But the basics. HTML is the type of document. CSS is how I change the color to blue. If this was red, it would be red, right? As you can see, the classes don't break anything, even though I'm not linked to anything that does any of that. I mean, another way to do it would be to have like style sheet up here. But you're supposed to link to another thing. All right, let's go back to my document. We did the different types of code: HTML, CSS, and JS. Python is another language that's kind of like JS, where it would have for example, let's say I do console.log hello, and I save. If I go to my thing, which is here, this was just your basic test. Even on your basic test, if you go to your console and say 2 + 3, it knows it's 5. And this is your JavaScript console is It's a working JavaScript thing. So it said hello. When I told it to say hello, it said hello. Not sure what the undefined is, but huh? Sorry, I'm terrible at typing. I'm not sure why it's saying undefined, but anyway, in your file that we're working on currently, if I go to inspect and I go to console, it says hello. If I said console log hello 2, it says, hey, the alert. Let's get rid of the alert because it's kind of annoying. And as you can see, it says hello 2. Now, I think it's a little confusing to look at all of this at once. I would prefer to just have the script, and let's say console.log, hey, and I have to link it again. When it's linked to a different file, you put it at the top. Otherwise, put it at the bottom. Okay, what am I doing? Yeah, Python is another language. Yeah, don't worry about that. Game development. Did that. Okay, create own algorithm. Let's say I said, remember when I'm saying a console log or alert, this part before the parentheses is the name of the function, and this is built in. I didn't create it, it's just ready to go. And then inside of the parentheses is what's called the parameter, and the function will run on whatever input you give in the parameter, and it will log, hey, that's what console log does. If I created a new function, if I said function odd, and then that's defining a function called odd, and all it does is log the text number 7, a string of 7. I'll show you the difference between 7 and 7 in a second without the quotes. If I say odd here and I do a colon, that's calling the function. So I've created a function called odd, and curly brace is saying what's in the function. And it could all be up here, but people like to space it out. It says 7 right here. If I said 7 without the quotes, it would also say 7. But see, it's a little different. Okay, so if I said 7 plus 3 with no quotes, what would I get? 10. Because 7 plus 3 is 10, and now I'm saying console.log 7 plus 3. So it's saying 10. But if I said 7 plus 3, it would say 73. Because the 7 is not a 7 in the tens column of, like, if I said, 73. It's the text of 7. So in other words, if I did 7 times 2, okay, well, it just figured it out. it converted it. But this is a string. Let me see a better example. If I said 7 plus... Well, the browser's too smart for its own good, so it's hard to teach this. But anyway, here's my point. Here's a better example. If I'm going to get rid of this hey thing. If I, at the top, if I define a variable, if I say, and there's better ways to do this, but just var is fine for now. If I say var max equals 117, and I console log max, it says max because the quotes let it know to actually say max instead of using the variable max. If I console log max without the quotes, it will say 117. So that's a better example. So if you want to combine variables and text, you can use backticks instead of quotes. And backticks is to the left of the number 1. Anyway, if I said Max's favorite number is $, caret, or what are those called? Curly brace, max. Oh. Max's favorite number is 117. Okay? This is like a new notation. It's really useful. And the caret, the $, curly brace lets you know that we're putting a variable. Whatever I put in here is a variable inside the curly brace there. Now, the semicolon is, if I take it out, it will still work. But it's to let the computer know that I'm done with this call of a function. Console log everything in these parentheses, and then, like for example, if I copy and pasted it and I said Stevens, it'll say Stevens' favorite number is 117, and the console log is a function that will log whatever's in here. So by changing what's in here, it'll change what it logs. Similarly, now this function called odd, if I had it say this, and the reason I called it odd is because it'll spit out odd numbers if I code it that way eventually. This outputs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, okay, to 9. And this is called a for loop, and I only called the function once, it looks like, but it ran 10 times. And it did that because we're in a loop. And the way the loop works is you say for, and then it's a parentheses, and then the curly brace, like what do you want to do for how long? And then this is, the for loop has 3 like parts, and they're separated by semicolons. And you create a variable and you set it at an initial value. Like let's say I set it to 5. Then this would say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is where it starts, and then this is where it ends, and my variable is just I. If I could change it to X, but then I would want to console log X too, right? Now this is interesting. I said start at 5, and the second part is called the condition. So start at 5, and as long as it's less than 1, do this loop. And nothing happens because 5 is greater than 1. So let's say 11 Now it goes 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, that's while it's less than 11. As soon as it's equal to 11, it stops, so it doesn't run the code. If I said less than or equal, you would say that in code like this. Then it would include the 11. Okay, now this third part is the increment. So x equals x times 2. If I said that, 5, 10. And if I can make this go up to 110, it would say 5, 10, 20, 40, 80. And then at 160, it doesn't meet this condition, so it doesn't go and console log it. Now, x plus plus means just add 1. Just add 1. And you see how amazing computers are, how fast it did that. Let's go back to 17. Okay, so I could also do x minus minus and start this at 55. And then you would have, while x is greater, if I said, well, x is greater than or equal to 17, and it would start at 55 and go all the way down to 17. So you can see how this would be useful if, for example, if you knew how to determine an odd number and you wrote a program or an algorithm to do it, and then, like, what if I could make this function odd? I can make it either spit out odd numbers all the way to like 1,000,000, or I could have it check a number. Like, here's another example. What if this function I've been working with has nothing in the parameter, but if I said n, and then I said console log with the backtick notation, n is $n. Now, when I run odd of nothing, odd needs an n. It's based on what it's getting. And I'm saying odd with nothing. So n is undefined. It's like, what do you want me to do? But if I say odd 7 or odd max, well, let's not use max again. Let's say Bill. N is 7, N is Bill. When I do odd of 7, I get N is 7. When I do odd of Bill, I get N is Bill. And change this to Billy, and you get it. Okay, so what if I said odd is 7, and odd is 6, and odd is 13? Odd of 13. Okay? Odd is n is 7, n is 6, n is 13. So now inside of my function, instead of just saying what it is, I could say what it is and then also do something else, like, hello. And now every time it'll say hello, because we're saying what it is and then we're saying hello. So n is 7, hello, n is 6, hello, n is 13, hello. So let's say, instead of just saying hello, let's see if the number's odd. So I could say if, and these are where if else statements come in. I'll say if odd, well, if you want a parentheses, if odd equals 3, or we'll say 13, this is one of them is, if odd equals 13, and I'll explain that in a second, console log number is odd, else console.log num is not 13. And instead of saying num is odd here, I'll say 13, because that's really all we're checking for right now, to make it easy. Okay, n is 7, n is not 13. N is 6, n is not 13. N is 13, n is not 13. So something went wrong. If odd equals 13. Oh, see, I said if odd. I meant if n, because we're checking n. Okay. So n, num is not 13, num is not 13 when it's 6 and 7. When n is 13, num is 13. And instead of num, I'll say n to make more sense. N is 7, it's not 13, n is 6. So now we've written a function that knows if it's 13 or not. And if it's 13, I could console.log, hallelujah. And it'll only do that when it's 13. And even here, if we go back to what we've learned, let's say I have a paragraph and there's nothing in it, but I say ID data. So there's nothing in it, but we do have an ID of data. If I said hello, for example, it would be down here. That's where it is. And we'll leave the hello there. But let's say if the number's 13, let's document dot get element by ID, and I called it data dot inner HTML equals 13 is chill. Cannot set. Okay, we're not. Well, we are linked. Let me get rid of all this for a sec. I don't know why it's saying it's null. Is this the ID of data? What if I did div? Usually I use a div. But that shouldn't matter. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on right now. Maybe if I put this down here? Okay. My apologies. For some reason, it wants the script to be on the bottom. I forgot about that. Okay. Alright, so put it at the bottom. If you're going to be modifying the DOM, which is the document. Okay, I apologize. But Now it says ha because I got the element by the ID of XP and I changed it to ha. For example, I could change it to hello world. Okay, so even though it says nothing, it's connected to a JavaScript file which says hello world. Okay, so let's go back to ha. My point of that is the practical usage of if then statements is if this, then do something to the HTML. Okay, I apologize. Now, if we go back to if it's odd, I would say odd of n, odd of 3. I could say if n is divisible by 2 equals the percent is actually called a modulo. Odd else even it says 3 is even. Why does it say that? Oh, okay. And it doesn't matter if you have one quote or two. Anyway, what modulus 2 means is if the remainder of n when you divide by 2 equals 0, that's what this code says, then it's even. Meaning 4 divided by 2 is 2 and there's no remainder. However, 3 divided by 2, it would be one full number with a remainder of like 0.5. It just doesn't work as cleanly. Like if I say odd of 30, it's going to say even because 30 divided by 2 is 15 and there's nothing else going on. Whereas 31 divided by 2 would be 15, point something, so it would be odd. Anyway, so now I could say odd of a bunch of different numbers like 41, 51, 66, and 12. And it'll say odd, 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 even, even. So you can see the practical usage of I created a function that lets me, even though this code is complicated when you write it, it becomes so simple. Once you've solved a problem once, you've solved it infinite times. Anytime I ever need to, and this is how your brain works too, but like anytime I ever need to know if like what does your brain do when you're determining a number of is odd? You probably think to yourself, well, if I can divide it by 2, it's even. If I can't, you know what I mean? This is dividing by 2 cleanly. As opposed to this number would not be 0. The 0 represents the remainder. So you can see how it's like how people think, and then I run that algorithm on different numbers. If I said odd of Pikachu, it would say probably odd? Yeah. Pikachu's odd because it fits in the else statement. Because Pikachu divided by 2 does not have a remainder of 0. So it's just odd. Alright. That might be it for round 1. Oh, and I could make it, determine if the number is prime by similar methods. But who cares? Okay, and what can it do? Why is it fun? if I look at my website, if I click on this guy, I've already kind of showed this, but if I click on this, I'm gonna mute it. YouTube would ban me, but the music is playing, and there's two different DJs. If I click this one, it'll be a little bit darker music, like masculine, and then this chick plays the girly music, like Death Cab. Okay, that's probably enough to get copyrighted right there. Okay, but this is my iPod. There's no ads, and it's all my favorite music and two different stations, and this is what I use. And that's what code can accomplish. And like if I click on my music, my guitar thing, it takes you to my website where I have CSS, I have transparent SoundCloud stuff with a background image, and when I hover over this stuff, it's the cursor is changed to a music note, which is kind of cool. And then like you can go to game design, and like, you know, this is all code. Game design itself, this would be C# code, which is an object-oriented language. And you know, there's a little game I made, pretty fun. Anyway, you know, if I go to articles and I click on this and then I click on that, the website isn't actually making an HTTP request and loading. It's JavaScript just changing what's displaying dynamically, the same way I said hey, or I remember when I got stuck because the script tag was in the wrong place. It's changing the stuff. And now if I go to blog, like this would be HTML, CSS so far, but then this is JavaScript, right? So if I click on this, it shows you my video game strategy guide. But it's like, if you don't like video games, then, you know, you click that and then you read the blog. And then you can go back to index. And I made, okay, here's another cool thing that you could do. Like, I made a Pokemon game, and if I attack Mew, I have no, it says I used Thunder. It brought his damage down, but he killed me with that attack. Now I get to choose my next Pokemon, and like if I use Ninetales, his moves come up, and then, you know, we can have a little fight, and then he's gonna kill me again, and then I bring out Charizard and I kill him, you know, and then the JavaScript is running with like a time delay, so you have time to read it, and it'll say sending out Onyx, and then I can choose a move. If I chose Fire Spin, he would die. If I choose Fly, he gets a chance to attack with Rock Slide. He attacks me again, and then I can kill him. And anyway, then it would send out Raichu. Okay, so there's a lot of cool stuff. So you can design games. You can have pictures. I forgot to show that. Let's say let's see what pictures I have on my desktop. I have one for Mac Miller, Mac.jpg. If I put him in sample, and now I'm in my VS Code, Mac is right here. So now if I say image src equals mac.jpg, alt, we would say Mac. Alt is what happens if the image fails to load. What does it say? Now I go back to my thing, and Mac Miller is there. And you'll notice he isn't styled properly. He's kind of off the page. But so to fix that, I would apply a class of pick to him. And if I do that, nothing happens. But if I, above the body, if I link my CSS file, sample.css, now all this stuff, style comes back. And then if I made a class of pic for my picture, and now for .pic, I can say max width is 100%. Like, don't be bigger than the whole page. And now Mac is the size of the page. And if I shrink, he shrinks too. So, pretty cool stuff. Like, now he works on a phone. If I say iPhone. All right, so like looks pretty good, right? Just basic stuff, but it doesn't look that bad. You know, as long as you throw some images in there, make it responsive, have some styling. You can use Google Fonts. You can do a lot of cool stuff. So I hope you enjoyed me bumbling around my tutorial for Smarties. It's an introduction. All right. Peace out. Let me know if there's anything you want to learn. All right, bye. Out of this.